If you surveyed most of the general public, you'd find out that they believe addiction is something governments are trying to fix. That all the money, policing and treatment exists to reduce harm. But that's not what the evidence says. Systems that claim to fight addiction grow alongside it. More funding, more enforcement, more treatment. Yet the problem never disappears. So something doesn't add up. If this is really about solving addiction, why does it keep generating profit instead? Oh, sorry, the door's just opened. Sorry, my door opened. So, drugs and addiction, an anarchist perspective. Dickie Dredd. This is part 60 in chapter 8, Propaganda, Fear and the Myth of the Addict. Or part 60 in the video series. And it's part 61 in the book, The Economics of Stigma. Stigma survives because it pays. As section 59 of 60 showed, moral panic and media fear do not merely shape opinion, they generate revenue. The war on drugs became a funding model disguised as ethics, an economy of control whose balance sheet depends on punishment and compliance. Prohibition's fiscal architecture is now global. Since the 1970s, policing, prisons and pharmaceuticals have evolved into independent markets sustained by fear. Each arrest campaign or crisis secures new contracts, grants and votes. The logic is circular. Punishment creates dependency. Dependency demands more punishment. As Alexander observed, addiction expands in precisely those environments that invest most heavily in its containment. Since the 1970s, drug prohibition has coincided with more than a fourfold rise in prison population in the US, with drug offences accounting for a large share of that growth, while public funding on drug enforcement has exceeded $1 trillion globally, despite no sustained reduction in drug use or addiction prevalence, supporting the claim that punitive systems expand alongside rather than resolve the harms they target. Rather than repeat the political origins of the systems, you can see that was all we did. We talked to that in Nixon's Crusade and another section on the hidden hands. It is enough to note that the same cycle continues under new branding. Governments fund punitive systems that reliably fail, because failure ensures continuity. In the UK, annual expenditure on narcotics policing exceeds £1 billion. In the US, federal enforcement costs more than $3 billion each year. Neither figure includes the private sector dividends from security, surveillance and incarceration, industries that owe their existence to criminalisation. The pharmaceutical mirror image is equally lucrative. Where the law prohibits one form of relief, medicine sells another. As shown in section 50 on Psychiatry's Empire, the chemical imbalance narrative converted distress into a managed subscription. Opiate marketing, antidepressant dependency and substitute therapies created a legal economy of maintenance parallel to the illegal economy of supply. Both depend on repetition. Whitaker described this as the business model of relapse, a system that profits from the absence of resolution. Empirical comparisons expose the cost of fear. Nutt et al. Demonstrated that alcohol and tobacco produce more total harm than most banned substances. Nutt reconfirmed the finding a decade later. Yet those same drugs remain protected by tax and advertised law, generating billions for state and industry. Stigma, not safety, determines legality. The market rewards substances aligned with productivity, penalises those aligned with pleasure or introspection. Portugal's decriminalisation experiment provides the counter-economy. Since 2001, possession for personal use has been treated as a civil matter, with resources redirected from punishment to health. Overdose deaths fell by 80%, HIV infection rates dropped, and treatment access doubled. Crucially, usage did not increase. Removing stigma reduced both cost and harm, evidence that compassion is fiscally as well as ethically superior. Elsewhere, the numbers tell a different story. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime values the global narcotics economy as $870 billion, roughly 1.5% of world GDP. Organised crime in Mexico, Colombia and Latin America thrives on the very restrictions intended to suppress it. In the UK, county line trafficking has risen in direct proportion to enforcement budgets, a domestic echo of a global pattern first traced in section 34 on Empire's Aftertaste. Moral panic sustains black markets more efficiently than any cartel. Anarchist reframes these facts not as failure, but as exposure. A system that criminalises consciousness while commercialising dependence reveals its priorities. The economics of stigma are not accidental, they are structural. Fear stabilises profit by translating disconnection into demand. The addict, the prisoner, and the patient occupy different branches of the same enterprise. To dismantle this economy requires defunding fear itself, replacing punitive expenditure with cooperative investment. Mutual aid networks, decriminalisation models, and community-led clinics demonstrate that care can be cheaper and freer when trust replaces control. As Section 57 argued, stewardship restores both agency and efficiency. A society that stops paying to punish may finally afford it to be able to heal it. So, addiction isn't just misunderstood, it's economically useful. A system built on punishment, treatment and control doesn't eliminate the problem. It depends on it continuing, which means what looks like failure may actually be stability. So if addiction keeps entire industries running, what would happen if it actually disappeared? And if we're funding a system that needs the problem to survive, what does that mean for everything we've been told about fixing it? So next up in Chapter 8, Propaganda, Fear and the Myth of the Addict, we've got Section 62, Behind Bars, Prohibition's Last Frontier.